President, members. Just a couple of housekeeping matters before I get to the substance. Senator Huffines, I want you to know I would never question your integrity. I know for a fact you thought Cleet had endorsed it, so anyone that's challenged you on your misinformation, it didn't come from my corner. You're an honorable member of this body, and I know someone gave you that information, and you had every right to use it at that time, and you're an honorable man to stand up and correct that bit of testimony. Members, if you recall, a few hours ago I stood up and said that I was opposed to the piece of legislation, but I also had reconciled myself to it had the votes to pass, and I would have probably been a quiet no, or certainly made my record clear. But I think it's important, if I could take your time, to go back in time and first establish that I'm not anti-gun. I don't know how many of you know I grew up in Hill County for a major part of my life, 3 miles off a paved road. First gun I fired at 12. You had to really want to fire it because it was a single barrel 12-gauge shotgun that would just about knock a 12-year-old down. So I had to want to hunt and fire that old shotgun really bad. That was the beginning, assuming you don't count the BB guns that I had before that. My house burned down when I was 6, greater in the country. I was in Waco. My father had picked me up on visitation. My family had divorced at 7. My mother remarried, so we went to Hill County, and my father had picked me up for visitation. We went into Waco to a Baylor football game, Senator Birdwell, and we drove up in the driveway, and there was nothing but a chimney left there on Sunday morning. They took us into town, opened the dry goods store, and got me 2 of everything, 2 socks, 2 underwear, 2 shirts, 2 jeans, and we lived in a 1-room shack in Whitney till they could move another house on that piece of property. I tell you all that to let you know my understanding of guns. My 6th grade class of 30 kids in Whitney collected $13 to help us replace my lost goods, and you can guess what I went and bought: a BB gun. And my mother never got over it. So I can sit here and establish my credentials. I was here and voted for Jerry Patterson's CHL. I remember all the scare tactics and the concerns, legitimate, that road rage and shootouts would take place, and you and I know that hasn't been the case. Fast forward, as I said when we debated it originally, up until session 4 last, I got A+ with NRA. They did mailers for me. I don't think guns are necessarily bad if responsible people have them and use them responsibly for sports, protection, Second Amendment. But I did have a difficulty with campus carry because of the incidents around the country, and of course I lost that A+ rating. Fast forward, I am concerned about open carry in general. I'm concerned about this building in particular. I'm concerned about in our communities, not necessarily from the persons that have the license, because they have taken the course, but it's someone that's upset or has bad intentions can very easily grab that gun from an open carry person when they're not observing and do serious harm. So if you'd have told me when I was driving to work this morning that I was going to participate as actively in this debate as I am, I'd have said, you're crazy, because it was the last thing I envisioned. But as I said in our question and answer, when your amendment came up, I have a duty to represent my district, the state, and certainly the voices of law enforcement throughout the state, which I have really heard from in the last couple of hours that I'm going to cite you a couple of their concerns. First of all, their real concern is, Senator Huffines, and I guess you're to be recognized for this, because you had constitutional carry and you pulled it down before we voted. More than one law enforcement, sheriffs have called me this afternoon and said, this is nothing but a backhanded way to accomplish constitutional carry. And I think each and every one of us needs to recognize that. Senator Estes, I think during the break I heard you say this is a mountain. We're making a mountain out over a molehill. Not in the eyes of the people that have to protect us on a daily basis. And I know the majority of this body was not for constitutional carry, but if we'll slow down and see the real impact of not being able to ask anyone with an open carry firearm, essentially we're at constitutional carry, and it will allow convicted felons, perhaps even a parolee, mentally disturbed individuals to have that firearm without any questions whatsoever. So you won't know if they have a license or not. That was a major point that a Sheriff Association member told me during the break. Also, they pointed out, and I want us all to realize, essentially, for 20 years, concealed weapons have worked, licensed concealed weapons, which allowed officers to ask you if you have a concealed weapon. And I really think this is profound, members, as we take this possible giant step of not allowing law enforcement to ask questions about an open carry. They can do it right now when they pull you over, or if you're approaching this Capitol. Are you carrying a concealed weapon? And the law requires you to say yes and show your license. And you're fixing to do away with that, and it's essentially the same system under open carry that we have under a concealed weapon. And in fact, I had someone that I respect that's in charge of security of this building, and I want you to think about this. We won't need metal detectors. Senator Huffines, we will not need metal detectors in this building if our law enforcement that protect us and the public on a daily basis cannot ask someone if they're coming through the east or any door of this building and they notice a weapon being carried openly, what's the purpose in the metal detectors? So members, I would talk as long as my voice and energy would allow me. I would talk for a week or more. Obviously that's impossible, and I would talk into the evening. I'm not going to talk for the sake of just burning time, because well, you know, a filibuster only works in the closing hours of the session, which we've had a little familiarity with. I've seen it very effectively used in the past for someone, Gonzalo Barrientos, Carlos Truan, a number of members I've served with, on a kind of a regular basis would filibuster a half a day or so to bring attention and focus to an issue. And essentially that's why I'm talking right now. I want the people of Texas, I want all of our constituents to know that in my judgment and in law enforcement's judgment, we're really, really playing with a dangerous matter. It's not something that we can afford to be wrong about. You know, you make a mistake on a lot of legislation, it can be fixed. You make a mistake with this, in the eyes of law enforcement, it's going to cost lives. Now let me speak to a couple of your salient points, Senator Huffines. You say, you can't be asked anything without probable cause. This is not changing anything. Well, you're wrong. I respectfully let you know that criminal justice has exceptions where officers can talk to you, challenge you without probable cause. First and foremost are our game wardens. A game warden can pull you over, approach you in an open field anytime they want to, and ask you for your hunting license, your fishing license, without any probable cause. So there is examples in the penal code and in law enforcement where they do not have to have a probable cause. Likewise for maritime law enforcement. A game warden or a maritime officer, which Austin has on Lake Austin, can drive up and ask you for your safety equipment or your boat license anytime he or she wants to without any probable cause. So for you to stand there and say that it's just like all other contacts with law enforcement is just wrong. They do not need probable cause to approach you for some of these special issues. Now, I've also heard from law enforcement that can go on and on with issues and examples where they need to be able to ask someone about a weapon, an open carry, certainly in our metropolitan areas. One called and said, if someone is acting in front of a daycare center, no law being broken, but the concern of the parents or the operators, they would need to be able to ask that person, do they have a license for that firearm? And you could probably cite many, many other areas, particularly if you get into some of maybe of our strong religious beliefs, some of the churches that have conflicts with certain groups. Someone could be out in front of a mosque or tabernacle, not violating the law, but just there with a gun. Law enforcement believes it's necessary to be able to ask those questions. Someone told me earlier today, with all the money y'all are spending on border security, because we are concerned about security along the border, have any of us stopped to think for a moment what it will be like for law enforcement to go into a fast food establishment along the border that we collectively have already designated as a high-risk area and see someone sitting there with a pistol and not be able to go ask them, are you a licensed carrier of that firearm? Or are you involved in human trafficking, drug trafficking? Are you a member of the cartel? Because they really can't tell by just walking in and observing someone sitting there with a firearm. Talking about just walking in and observing someone reminds me that I need to address the racial profiling concern of some of my colleagues. No one, I will not take a back seat to no one to being against racial profiling. And I would suggest there's been racial profiling before this legislation is passed, or if your amendment goes on. Some of my colleagues that I respect, particularly my African American brothers, I take a back seat to no one. I would do nothing to give anyone the opportunity to profile someone racially, religiously, or any other fashion. Unfortunately, we've had racial profiling since the beginning of time, long before this amendment was presented. Hopefully, Senator West, through your efforts and your colleagues, through dashboard cameras, we have certainly done great strides against racial profiling. And when you're successful with your body cameras, I hope we even reduce racial profiling more. I personally don't think this is going to enhance racial profiling any more than if we did not have it, because if you've got bad police officers, you'll have bad police officers. They don't need this amendment to come up with racial profiling. They can come up with 100 different reasons to pull someone over. I notice no one is using that argument against texting while driving. Now, you talk about some racial profiling. If you're really concerned, you ought to be concerned about racial profiling and who they're going to pull over if they see someone texting. They probably won't pull over someone often that looks like myself. So I could talk, and let me finish on racial profiling. African Americans make up less than 7% of concealed weapon CHL license. One is too many to be profiled. I'd like to say how many Hispanics, to my Hispanic brothers and sisters, colleagues, but how many of y'all know that the DPS considers Hispanics white, Anglo? I don't know why we haven't all got charged up about that, particularly the Tejano or the Hispanic caucus. I wanted to know how many Hispanics have concealed weapon permits, but the DPS historically and still to this day has everyone grouped under the category white, which doesn't help in this discussion. Let me say one other additional concern, or address your comments, Senator Huffines. I spent 10 years in the House. I respect the House and their right to pass what they choose. I respect Representative Dutton and his views, but I really think there's a distinction between the House and the Senate in that our forefathers really wanted us to have 4-year terms for a reason. And I think I've addressed that with some of the freshmen. We, by design, are supposed to slow legislation down by our 4-year term. We are supposed to not be the immediate reaction that a 2-year House member serves. So, in all due respect, the House has a right to their vote, but it should not be the great influence that you give it. I think I can easily tell you I'm opposed to your amendment. I hope the members will not only vote their district, but vote their conscience. I respect everyone's right to vote their district. Senator Huffines, you know your district better than I do. I really question whether your district would support this, but then you also have a right to vote your convictions, and certainly you're expressing yours today. So let me tell you of my concerns. If I thought the book I've got underneath my desk has got every member of CLEAT, there's 20,000 of them. I got their membership under my desk, and I could read it for the next couple of hours. Then I could go to the Municipal Police Organization and their members. Then I could move over to the Houston Police Officers Union, or I could go up to the Dallas. So I could spend to about midnight letting y'all know how serious I am about this and how I am really, honestly fearful for our police officers and consequently fearful for our constituents. But I think I have certainly made myself clear. I have done my job on this Senate floor. I respect the process. I think, as we've all recently in a couple of events talked about, what an honor it is to be a state senator, be one of 31 that represents 26 million. And one of the reasons it's an honor to be a state senator is to have a discussion and a debate such as this. Elections matter. I hope my concerns and fears do not prove correct because it involves lives. And I will, at this time, Mr. President, tell you that I'm very much opposed to this amendment, and then I'll be opposed to the bill regardless. It is kind of interesting, an observation, that some of my colleagues that are for this amendment plan to do everything they can to kill the bill. So, like I said, everyone has a right to vote their district, vote their conscience, but it's pretty interesting that they're going to put an amendment on a bill that they so badly want to defeat. With that, thank you, members, for your time.